Today we are out in the garden. It's getting to fall time and I wanted to go through some of the things that you can grow in your garden that are amazing fodder food. Now we use fodder food for sheep, rabbits, pigs, even the chickens to a point, but the chickens get a lot of household scraps, so we kind of save the foddering green food for the other animals. But I thought I would just take you through kind of a few things that are very simple to grow, very low maintenance, can double as useful for us as well as the animals. The animals get all kind of the waste product or the extra that we don't actually need. But yeah, I thought I would take you through some of the things that you should make sure are in your animal-friendly garden. One of the things we're going to start with, just because they're right beside the rabbit hutches that I am working on feeding right now, are sunflowers. Sunflowers are fantastic fodder food. You can see this guy here, he's already done. He's producing his seeds. And what I'm slowly doing is taking the greens off of these, because at this point the animals still love to eat those big leaves. And sunflowers are one of those wonderful crops that work great for just plant it and leave it, pretty much. That's what we do. You just plant them somewhere along an edge or, you know, out of the way and let them do their thing. And we're going to make some roasted sunflower seeds out of these as well and save some for animal feed later in the winter time. But the greens and the stalks are an amazing thing. Well, I shouldn't say the stalks. I don't know if the bunnies would eat the stalks. I know the sheep do. But definitely, you know, not anything on this plant really goes to waste. And that is something that makes an excellent fodder food. Definitely, we look at fodder food being something that is simple, that we don't have to do a lot of work to get it. Well, there is the proof. Squash will make fodder food for the sheep, even if it's not ripe, apparently. That's Beauty. She is eating that like nobody's business. That was a big squash too. Oh well. Well, and as you just saw, obviously squash for those bigger animals is an amazing fodder food. Now the pigs, we probably will have to cook that squash. But the nice thing is when you are using a wood stove, you just put a cast iron crock on the stove during the day with the squash chucked in it, and it's cooked up and ready for them. So during the summer, would I cook it in the oven just so they could eat it? Not a chance. But in the winter time, when we have that wood stove running, it's a perfect fodder food for the pigs. Definitely same thing, beans. You need to cook them. But if you've got the wood stove running and you've got a cast iron pot, then why not? But as we're talking about the squash, our next kind of fodder food that is super simple to grow is weeds. Almost all of our animals love lamb's quarters. As you can see, these have gotten really big and are going to seed, but we're still going to pull them out and we're still going to feed them, whether it's to the rabbits or to the sheep or pigs. They all love it. The nice thing is once they get to this stage for the rabbits, they're a nice woody vegetable and they do love to chew the stalks. So that's another great fodder food that grows right in your garden. And the nice thing is you want to pull this out anyways. You really don't want these weeds. So it's nice to have some of the animals that you can throw those weeds to. This next fodder food is an ongoing battle for us. We were lucky. This was here when we moved onto the property and we have been trying to control it. We have moved some to the food forest so it can just grow wild. But we're talking about the mint. Now we have established this is spearmint. So our bunnies will have amazing teeth because they eat a lot of mint. This is just one small patch that is on the property. And as you can see, it runs about 6 feet wide and 15 feet long by 10 feet that way. And it keeps growing. Here you can see at my feet, amongst the squash, there's mint. Mint. It kind of grows everywhere. It's a bit of a menace, but then at the same time, when you're just pulling it from the roots to get it out of a path or get it out of a bunch of plants where you don't want it, excellent fodder food. Basically, mint is a weed. If you don't have somewhere that you can just let it go, definitely make sure you contain that. But when it comes to rabbits, amazing fodder food. We have found the sheep and pigs do not enjoy it. You could throw it in, and if they were starving, I'm pretty sure they would eat it. But by preference, they leave it. And they eat the other stuff. But that's okay because it's an amazing one for the rabbits. Corn is another fantastic fodder food because you can get the parts you want off of it and the rest of it is still extremely edible and delicious to the animals. As you can see, our corn patch here, we're almost through it. We've been feeding this couple stalks every day to bunnies, just to kind of keep them going. We take the cobs off anything that kind of went bad or got wormy, and that went to the pigs. They loved it. So again, corn is one of those, like the sunflowers. You can take off the part that you want to use, and what would usually kind of become a waste product becomes very, very, very useful fodder food. If you had horses, this is a great fodder food. The pigs, they do eat the leaves, but they don't do anything with the stalk, which kind of is a waste of it compared to the sheep and the bunnies and the bigger animals. On the homestead, we are really, really kind of going down the line of becoming beet farmers. It hasn't shown super great this year, but hopefully in next year's garden season, you'll really see that shine. We've kind of focused this year again on our sugar beets, but we've also grown the Detroit red beets. I think they're Detroit red beets. If they're not, I'll write it down below here on the screen. But yes, we've got the Detroit red beets, and we also are going to go down the line of doing the mango beets as well for fodder food, purely for animals. But here is one of our sugar beet patches. And the sugar beets are amazing because we use this for making sugar, syrup, that sort of thing for human consumption. And the byproduct for that would be what you would normally buy in a feed store called beet pulp, and it comes in a pellet or a dried flake. Now we don't do that. We're just going to freeze the blocks and take them out as we need them for the fodder after we press the pulp for sugar. But you've also got all this amazing greens, and I've been picking off these. I keep harvesting greens from the outside, and they just keep producing, and the bunnies love the beets. So do the greens. So do the pigs, and I'm sure if you let the sheep at these, they would devour them. But the one thing to remember when you're growing fodder for things is to pick the animal that it's going to make the most difference for. Definitely the bunnies are something that we find financially, it certainly makes a difference to grow fodder for them, because if you can avoid those pellets and grains and grow as much as you can during the season, you can save a fortune. The pigs, definitely on the squash front, the bigger items like that you can store for winter, they go out to pasture in the summer, so it doesn't really make sense to save this stuff for pigs. But we do give it to them on the occasional treat, or if they are confined at all during the summer. But mostly what I'm showing you here would be fodder for the rabbits, anything of the green type variety that you wouldn't be able to store until winter use. But the red beets, again, feed the greens, store the beet part. Excellent fodder food for pigs, rabbits. Even the sheep do eat them, but I'm not sure they're the best candidate to get those. But hopefully we'll do a little series next year on the red mango fodder beet for livestock. It's another one that we've grown that is fantastic. A huge, huge root. I guess it's a root. And it does make a big dent. Like if you can store those, you've got a lot of fodder food. Goodness, what's the matter? I guess we don't feed our cats, apparently. Are you hungry? Oh, do you have a terrible life, Ebbie? Yes, you look hard done by. Cats around here, their fodder is, of course, meat product. They are also great to have on the homestead because when you're butchering stuff for yourself, you have a lot of byproduct and waste product that, let's be honest, I'm not going to eat it. So cats are great for that. Sweet potatoes. These vines, the rabbits love. Now, we give it in moderation. We don't want to give them too much of this. Plus, you don't want to set the plant back by taking too much greens off at a time. But saying that, we are approaching fall, and I know, my cat is apparently starving. Sweet potatoes are a great fodder thing as well, because you can cook the potato to give if you really want to do that. But you also have all these wonderful greens that you're going to have to start taking off in order to harvest those plants anyways. So rather than composting or waste them, again, slowly use that as another fodder. And as we finish talking about those, that brings us to our kale. And you can see this needs to be harvested. Again, we've kind of been picking off this over and over and over for ourselves, but there's no way we can eat as much kale as we produce. This is just one patch that we have. To be honest, I don't think any of our animals wouldn't eat the kale. It is fantastic. It keeps going. It's cold hardy. We actually have got some of this started that we're going to put under a tunnel for winter time so that hopefully it gets a bit of a head start going into fall and some good growth, and then we can keep it going for fall into, you know, maybe the new year. That might be pushing it, but we'll keep our fingers crossed. But kale, another amazing animal garden fodder food. When it comes to fodder food for pretty much the sheep or the bunnies, I wouldn't say that this would work for the pigs. It doesn't work for the pigs, actually. But for the bunnies and the sheep, being browsers, I guess, they'll go out and pick at things. And one of the things that they do love to nibble on is trees. They love little branches, little twigs, that sort of thing. So anytime that you are thinking you're going to be pruning out in the woods, that sort of stuff, spring or fall, anything that's got the leaves on it is definitely a fantastic fodder food. One of the things that we have plenty of around here is Manitoba maples. And we prune these suckers back, and the more you prune them, the more they grow. And the nice thing about that is we just keep pruning, and we just chuck them in the pen, and the sheep clean those off. The rabbits will chew on them and clean them off. I would say the Manitoba maple aren't exactly the rabbit's favorite, though. The rabbit's favorite, which we kind of let grow everywhere, is the willows. They will chow down on this. We prune our weeping willow out front, but as you can see down here in our sort of food forest, what we'd love to one day be a food forest, we have lots of willows that we keep in here and let them grow and do their thing for the bunnies to eat. Even in the wintertime, I think we did a video on it, which we will link above here in whichever corner it comes in, on feeding the branches in the wintertime to the bunnies. We have a lot of poplar trees. I think they're called an aspen. And we definitely are pruning paths and cutting down those trees in the wintertime. No leaves on them, but the bunnies absolutely love chewing on the bark and stripping those branches, which is kind of nice. And then you're left with a bunch of little branches that if you have a wood stove, they make fantastic fire starter. And probably last, but certainly not least, at least not on our homestead, the top used fodder food at Hickory Croft Farm is, drumroll please, burdock. Burdock seems to be pretty much the same as the Manitoba maple tree. The more you cut it down, the more it seems to grow. And this is an amazing fodder food. The sheep love the burdock. The bunnies love the burdock. I could feed the bunnies 4 days in a row burdock and they'll still eat it, which is fantastic when it comes to saving a penny and giving them a bit more of what they would naturally have eaten out in the wild. Anyways, this video was just kind of a quick look at a few of the things that you can find around your homestead and farm, or start thinking about growing even, that you could turn into animal fodder. And you know, animal fodder is not just about saving money. It also is about better quality and diversity in your feed for your animals. So definitely something to think about. It's an added work time, but certainly worth the effort. There are certainly a lot of other items that you could include in the fodder. There is carrots. I mean, carrots are a great one if you're lucky enough to be able to grow them. Turnip is something that we have used before for the bunnies, and they did eat it. Not a favorite, but certainly if you're good at growing turnip, it's certainly a great option and helps to, you know, keep that diversity going, keep them interested in their food. A huge one is apples. Apples are a massive fodder food for us. Now, we're not to the point of collecting them to save for winter yet because it's still too warm. But once we start seeing those 10-degree kind of day, 10-degree nights, and, you know, maybe not going over the 15 to 20 degrees during the day, we'll start packing apples from the back, all the windfall apples and everything, into black totes, and we'll put them in the loft of the barn, and we save those for winter. So it's a great fodder food, and everybody really should collect them. I mean, before we had this farm, we did not have a bunch of apple trees, but we carried buckets in our vehicles. And anytime we saw a roadside tree that was losing apples, we stopped and picked. because it can save you a fortune on pig feed, that's for sure. The bunnies, it's a nice little bonus, but again, you don't want to overfeed any particular item to the bunnies. You don't want that. It's better to be, you know, the big diversity. But we did find we could substitute one meal a day for the pigs with apples, and they were quite content. So that's just something to think about. But I'd better get on with chores here because, yeah, I've delayed that quite a bit today. But we will definitely come back. The other thing that I did want to do, which we'll come back with later, is actually a video on growing proper wheat and barley fodder for your rabbits. We're also thinking about growing it for the geese for this winter. So it's something we haven't done in probably 3 years, but we're going to go back and visit that again because I think it would be a great option and it's an amazing money saver. But stay tuned for that. And don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss out on anything. Hit that little bell and leave us a comment because we love to hear from our viewers and get your ideas. And yeah, if there's anything that you think we missed, we'll be happy to make a note on it.